All right, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We have Trekell Pro Team Artist Kate Zambrano with us. She's going to be doing a demo today with charcoal, doing a portrait. And she's going to show how she utilizes our hog bristle brushes to help with her drawings. So without any further ado, Kate, go ahead and take it away.
Hello. Okay, so I have my setup over here, my easel, got my camera. I wanted to show like how many brushes and what I'm using them for. So I usually have about 4 brushes. I'm using the Hog Bristle round Trekell brushes, and I use 2 number 4s and 2 number 6s. So I'll have a pair for the light and a pair for the dark values. So, and then you like never have to wash them or anything because all the pigment's on there and you don't have to like worry about it drying or anything like that. So I'm going to flip the camera and then like set up the lighting really quick. It'll probably take like 20 seconds and then we'll just go ahead and get started. Let me flip this camera. Okay. So I've got a portrait of my friend Cindy. Open these windows. Is that okay, or should I add like another like stationary light? Just let me
Second. Can we see what it looks like with another light just in case?
Yeah, let me grab it. If you hear a big crash, just don't mind me and just call 911. Okay, let's see. Maybe like that.
Do it again. A little bit closer.
Is that okay?
How does it look on everybody else's screen?
Actually, that's gonna be great.
That's good.
Looks great on
Perfect.
my end.
It's fine.
Looks good.
Okay. Ugh. All right, let me, there we go. Now my big head won't block it. All right, so to get started, I have a little spare bit of paper, like about this big, just taped to my table over here. And then I've just run some powdered pastel, like I just run the pastel over the paper. And then now I'm going to take one of my number 4 bristle brushes. They're brand new, so they feel so nice. And I'm just going to tap and twirl like this into the pastel. And I'm going to, let me move my setup a little. Actually, is she, on your screen, is she facing the left or the right? Because like, I think my mirror thing is
Facing left.
facing left. Interesting. Okay, cool. Thank you. On my screen, it shows she's facing right, weirdly enough. Okay, so I'm going to start in the lightest lights. So for me, I'm seeing this, like we're outside in the sun. I shot this reference in the sun, so it's coming from the top left, kind of like out over here a little bit. So it's just gonna start hitting your cheek around here.
We have one question already, Kate. Do you always use hog bristle, or do you ever use softer brushes, or do they, or does the hog bristle soften with use?
The hog bristle, it seems like counterintuitive to use something so scratchy, but it actually makes it very, very soft and airbrush looking. Like, and also the harder you press and the more like flat your brush gets, the more diffused and nice it will look, where I never was able to get that type of smoothness with a synthetic or a softer brush. It just kind of like moves it around in a weird way. I'm trying to make this camera not so bouncy. It's very soft right now, so the camera's not sure what to focus on, but as soon as we start bringing out details, it'll get better. And the paper I'm using is Fabriano clay toned. It's a nice light gray color, so it's good for mid-tones. Like it's already like half the battle. I feel like it's almost like a cheat to have the toned paper. And they have a lot of nice tones, Fabriano, but I like the gray the best.
We have another question from Rebecca. Is there any fixative or anything to prep the paper for the charcoal to adhere?
No, I don't ever do that. The only time I use fixative is to fix my charcoal that I have onto the paper. I'm going to erase this side a little bit so it's not so harsh. But I don't ever prep the paper. It's pretty well ready for absorbing the charcoal. But I think there's like working fixative that you could use if you ever needed it to have a texture, perhaps.
And then what kind of pastel are you using?
I'm using Sennelier dry pastel. Do not get oil pastel. Like sometimes I think that it gets confusing when I list my supply list for workshops, and there's always somebody that'll show up with oil pastels and they'll have this like beautiful portrait. And then as they're working, they're like, something's wrong. And I always am like, oh no, what's happening? And I can never figure it out. And then I go to use their pastel and I'm like, oh no. So it won't work with oil pastel. I don't like oil pastel.
There are more amazing artists with different types of work in there. But they will probably keep it up until it sells or something like that.
Who's that? So right now I'm just kind of going for the brightest brights. Since we only have an hour, I think I can do pretty well to just kind of get the bare bones.
The owner has a decent printer, so I'm going to meet him soon and probably
just have to step back for a second, make sure everything's where I need it to be. Okay, now I'm going to take the number 6 brush, which is quite a bit bigger, so it'll cover more of a surface. And I'm going to now take this one to blend out a little bit more and cover more ground with it. Sorry, this camera's going crazy. You can hear how like hard I'm pressing in, but it just makes it softer and softer. Like we haven't really even done much and it already is like, okay, like very, it's really fun to work this way. I feel like satisfying the whole time. Okay, so then the next step, after I get a nice base of the It's funny because it's so soft that it won't focus on her right now because there's no like definitive marks. So whenever I put something in here, it's like, oh, there it is. But so the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to take a General's white charcoal pencil and I'm going to go to those spaces where the brightest brights were, right whenever I started with the number 4 brush. And I'm just going to start bringing out the highlights. And then I'll go and soften them. So it is increasing the value of the highlight while also softening it. So there's not a lot of harsh marks.
Janet wants to know if you prefer the smooth or textured side of the paper.
The Fabriano doesn't have a side on their toned paper, but I know Canson does, and I like the smooth side. I do not like drawing on paper that has a texture. Like I'll use the Fabriano watercolor paper to whenever I tone my own paper, and I always use the smoother side. Or I use the 300-pound hot press, so it's very smooth. But then there's also like the side with has the name, and I use that side up. I don't know if that one's like more texture on one side, but like I have it in my brain that it is. So I always use, and plus like I like the words on it. But I do not go for the textured side of paper ever. Yuck. Since I like this so smooth in here, I feel like I can never get it as smooth as I need it to be with that paper. But I do like the smooth side of the dark gray Canson paper. That's a super fun paper to work on.
Was the preparatory drawing done with graphite or charcoal?
It was done with a Bic mechanical pencil. Just like we buy like a pack of 100 of them. They're super cheap, but I love them so much. They have such a nice like blending ability. Like here I just have some like marks, and usually I'll just like blend it out a little. I love those pencils so much. So it's just like a cheapy mechanical pencil, and I make sure to not make the lines too dark because once I put the pastel over it, you'll always be able to see those marks. So where I don't want to show like pencil marks at the start of it, I will blend out the graphite. Something that like I have to be conscious of all the time, and like the biggest thing that I advocate while I'm teaching is to hold your pencil far away. I mean, this pencil is like getting down there, but the harder or the farther you hold your pencil, then the more objective you'll be, which means that you'll stay like farther back from your piece, so you'll stay more objective. Like we have a tendency to like want to crawl up and then get those like fun juicy highlights and details, but I haven't put any details in yet and it looks more realistic. So if you want to like capture that realism, it's a lot of objectivity. Yeah, I already was like boop, boop, boop.
And then Kate, how do you clean your bristle brushes to get the pastel off?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't clean them because I'm always working within, the darks and the lights. And unless I'm going to use powdered pastel, like I don't have to clean the brushes because I'm like, it's a dry medium. So it's not going to like get crusty or anything. It's always just going to have like a nice amount of pigment left in it, but you can clean it. And I would probably use like, something from Trekell, of course.
I think you would want to use our coconut oil soap if you were going to clean them off.
I will say that I've used a lot of brush restorer. I have cleaned the brushes, but I don't do it often. And I never do it. But when I have the brush restorer, if like you start like this one might have gone through like a fair amount of abuse. And the brush restorer is very nice to just shape it back into place. But I haven't used the coconut soap, which I should probably do. But also it's a dry medium, so who cares? You don't have to clean it.
Yeah, I don't think you would need to clean it off unless you were planning on using, wanted to switch over to oil painting or something like that.
I would, yeah, and then I would just be like, just get a brush designated for that. Like, they're not expensive or anything, and also it's just it seems like I no matter how much I cleaned it, I wouldn't necessarily want pastel bits in my oil paint. Okay. Okay. So I'll add just a little more pastel here and there because now I brought up this value, so it changes, the values that it's next to. Everything's relative. So now I'm going to find where things don't look quite right, because the next step, I'm going to start adding the darks. And that is the stage where I put it off the longest. And I know that other people do too. But whenever you're struggling with your piece and you're like, well, the drawing's right, and like everything feels okay, but it just feels off at the same time, that's because you just need to move on to the next step, which would probably be like either values, or if you're painting, it's time to, like add some color if you're doing like an underpainting. But it for me, it always seems like as soon as I'm like messing with it, but it seems right, that's whenever you need to move on. So pretty soon here, I'm gonna start feeling that. So I just need to start moving on to the darks. I just like there to be a nice solid base of the highlights. So to start in the darks, what I'm going to do is, my brushes are new, so they don't have the pigment already in them. I'm like, oh no. So I'm going to take a number 4 round bristle brush, and I'm going to put it into the pile of powdered pastel that I have. I have a little pile of dark and a little pile of light. So I'll just take it on my, not my hand, I'll just take it to the side like this on the paper and twirl it like this, and it'll suck up a lot of pigment. But I'm also careful, like right at first, because like I said, I put the darks off for the longest time because I'm nervous. So we're just gonna start like, look at that, it's not much at all. Just start in like these little eyebrow area. It's like, it's kind of similar to anyone, that dabbles in makeup. Like it's not too dissimilar, like what we're doing here. And then because, the brush isn't exact, it kind of, goes a little over, and then I just bring that highlight value back down into the side of the nostril. So it's kind of like, it's very sculptural, like how, like drawing like this just feels like we're kind of making her come out in a ghostly type of way. Sorry, my throat feels so like congested. The wind is insane today. And it's just blowing tumbleweeds right into my throat. This is nowhere near the dark value that I'm going for, but like I said, I start pretty light. And also right here in her face, it's more blown out than it is in shadow because she's looking into the sun, as you can see. But you can really do a lot with just the residual pigment that's on the brush. You can really move it around. Whenever I started using brushes in my work, I was actually talking about it last night with my boyfriend. I was just like, I can't believe there was a time I didn't use brushes, where I was just like, I'll figure it out.
Do you still use your fingers sometimes, or Q-tips? And I know that you had different things that you would use. There it is.
With my finger. I definitely use Q-tips. I'll show you like Q-tips like right in the, the pockets of where the brush is. Even if you got the smallest brush, it's still like, it's going to scratch. So if you need something very delicate, I always use a cotton swab and just like quickly like, get in there. And I always use my finger. I don't have a fingerprint on my middle finger. actually. So I'll just do crimes with just that finger. Okay, so I'm gonna start in on the face with this General's charcoal pencil. This is number 2. And I'm going to use a brush to steady my arm because I'm shaky. And I'm gonna try to remind myself, like I said, these pencils are getting worn down, but I'm gonna hold it back as far as I can. And I don't ever really draw. Like I'm never just like boop, boop. Like I make a lot of little marks like this. So then if I wanted to blend it, then I can, and it'll be seamless. Lots of sketching. So now what I'll do, it's nowhere near the value I need it to be, but I'll just blend it a bit. Oh, and then I just drop my Q-tip.
Janet is asking if you still use tortillions.
I'm not sure what that is.
It's a new one for me as well. Janet, can you clarify what that is?
I mean,
stump.
I've never used a blending stump. I hate blending stumps. But some people, like that illustrator, her name's Eliza, she's incredible, and she uses blending stumps, and I'm just truly fascinated by how she's achieving what she does. So just for my own personal use, I think like between the brushes, my finger, and a Q-tip, and then I also use the, where are they? I've misplaced them, but I use these like little, oh, here they are, cotton rounds, and that's truly wonderful to use also. Here, these things. So I'll like dip these into pastel as well and move around that way. Sorry, I had to get up for a second. Can we find out what a tortillion is?
So that's what it was, a blending stump.
Oh, duh, sorry. I'm so excited about talking about art supplies.
And Yoshino is here.
Hi. Love them. Everybody check out No Way videos.
Hey, Alyssa, can you put a link in the chat for Kate's videos through No Wave?
Also, if you didn't get me anything for my birthday and you felt bad and wanted to, you should sign up for my Patreon.
Yes. Alyssa, also Kate's Patreon, if possible.
Alyssa, do all of the things. Cindy has these like delicate, beautiful eyebrows, so I don't want to get too crazy with them. So sometimes I'm not blending the marks I make just because I know that once I blend this eyebrow, it's going to take it into a deeper value. And I kind of want it to stay like pretty light. I just kind of hit it right at the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna dip a little bit more pigment. And also you can like knock the side of your easel or your paper, whatever's holding your paper or whatever, to get the excess pigment off. Because sometimes you don't know, and then it's just like, here's a blob of pastel for you. Okay. So whenever you're making a mouth, the instinct is to draw a line, right? Like between where the lips come together. But if you just hint at a couple of darker darks instead of making a line, it'll also look more realistic, like she's about to talk. Because like, yeah, you know, you don't talk for a minute, your lips get stuck together, right? Then you gotta like pull them apart. So if you just hit it in like maybe 3 spots, corners, and then the middle, depending on the angle of, you know, what you're looking at, what your subject looks like. But that's a little more realistic than just drawing a line all the way across it.
Is your paper set up so it's vertical, or are you flat right now?
I am vertical. I'm at an easel. But if something, usually, honestly, if it's this size or, you know, smaller, around this size, I'm probably going to sit in my bed. Like I don't usually sit at an easel unless things are going to be bigger than this, where I can't just manage it in my lap. So I'm mostly like between both horizontal and vertical, but I'm not necessarily like all the way horizontal because that will skew your perspective. So at least like a little angle, like propped up in your lap. I was gonna make her an elf, but I'm not sure. So whenever I'm making hair around the face, like you would think coming, you know, you can also come from right here, but I feel like it's more hair-like to go from, if there's like a dark mass, like right here, there's going to be a cutoff from this like panel of hair that's coming over. So I will start down here and go up because I feel like it'll kind of like mimic those little delicate roots where the hair starts growing. Yeah, everything.
What pencil? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, since everything's relative to what it's next to, now that I started adding this dark mask, now you can see like if the shadows before were like, oh, I don't know if I want to add that shadow yet. Like now that I put this isn't even that dark. Now I'm like, okay, well, it definitely needs it here. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Reno just wanted to know what pencil sharpener you use.
Let me tell you about my favorite pencil sharpener. Okay, so someone suggested it to Sean and I, and we just got it on Amazon. It's just called the AFMAT. Also, I just put a sticker on it. But AFMAT, it has 2 settings. There. So there's a really long one and then a shorter one. But this is how the shorter one comes out. Let me get this pencil. Like that looks, hold on, let me just sharpen it one more time. Sorry about the noise. Like that's the smaller of the, should I do like an influencer and do like this? That's the smaller of the points. And like, it's really cool to like sharpen your own pencil. And like, you know, I just learned how to sharpen a pencil with a razor blade. And I was like, this is so badass. And also tricky because as soon as you get it right, it's going to just snap. And then we discovered that. And I was like, well, I'm done with that. But I got it on Amazon. Long pointed pencil sharpener, I think. If they don't have that one, there's plenty of others just like it. Not sponsored. So now I'm just going to kind of bring out some of the highlights again. So quiet.
Can you let everybody know why you should learn to draw before paint? Because I know people love getting into painting right away, but you should always, start off with drawing first. Can you delve into that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I guess the same way you wouldn't want to build a house without foundation first. Like, if you don't know how to draw and you don't know how to get the placement correct and you don't know how to handle values, then putting color on it is just going to be another step where you're you're either working harder than you need to, or you don't know what you're doing. Sorry. But like, you can't just like start doing stuff without having a foundation. Like, there are people that do, but if you like, if you're like, oh, that looks kind of strange, it's because they don't know how to draw. So like, if I have my values correct in an underpaint, like I usually do an underpainting if I'm going to do oils. So if I have my underpainting correct, I can throw any color on top of it and it's gonna like, it'll just be art. It'll be like, oh, weird colors, but it'll look correct. So if you don't know like how to handle those things and you're not like, you haven't practiced enough drawing, it's going to be a lot harder and it's just not going to look right. Just think of it like, you can't have a sundae without the ice cream. Sean's much better at these analogies than me.
Made total sense. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're about halfway done with this demo, so if anybody has questions, please let Kate know before we end this.
Okay, 30 minutes, no pressure. Here we go. If you're using a photographic reference, or you use photographic reference, which is what I use mostly, don't try to match it exactly. Like, I know that seems like it's like, oh, well, that's going to be the most realistic, but actually you're going to start limiting yourself on how much creative freedom and how much like life you're going to be able to breathe into that piece, because it's going to be very stiff and stagnant and there's not going to be room for interpretation. And by that, I just mean like, whenever you're looking at your friend or somebody that's, you're talking to, there's not like a lot of hard edges. Like, everything's pretty soft, and then you pick and choose like what your focal point is, and that becomes crisp. So, controlling, I usually want this to be very like realistic, of course, and then like have fun abstractly around it. But if I made everything in this zone super incredibly detailed, the realism starts to flatten because now it's a photograph. So for me to make it look more realistic, lose edges, make things soft, make things like lead the viewer to what you want them to see if you want there to be a focal point, but don't pick out so much. Like, again, we haven't really put that many details, and like, okay, well, it looks like Cindy, like it's coming together, it's looking like a human. But if I were to get really rigorous with it, then it's just going to lose that, if that makes sense. I am very clumsy today, just dropping all of the things. Okay, so what I'm going to do.
Arthur has a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you ever turn your work upside down to get a different perspective on the reference?
Oh, all the time. I did a cover, like a redo cover thing for Criterion Collection of a movie called The Innocents. And I hadn't seen it. I wasn't very familiar with Deborah Carr at the time. I'm just using this to cover like a huge ground because we only have, like a few more minutes or like some minutes left. So I'm just gonna get in there. But the whole thing, I just was so unfamiliar with her face and all of that. And it was like a big project. So I painted the whole thing upside down. That's such a great tool. Or like having a mirror around. I know a lot of people will have mirrors, and that's a great tool too. Just whatever you can do to keep yourself objective is the best thing. Sorry, it's going to get wobbly for a second. And then what I can do, because like I just like there to be, for some reason, I'm not sure what the logistics of this is. I've spoken to a few people who like make the papers and like have very like extensive knowledge of different papers. Like, whenever I start putting the brush with the pastel in the lights, it blends great. For the darks, it wants to like, I don't know, it wants to hold on. It's very like absorbent, this paper. So I will put a base down first with just something to get in there with the dark value. And then whenever I take my brush, I'm just gonna use the number 4 again, and I fill it, it'll blend super softly. It starts to get so nice and it'll take that value down. You see what I'm saying? It's just like so much better than having, I don't want there to be so many unintentional lines. Next, what I'll do to take it in even darker value is I have one of these compressed charcoal things, and I will run it over either sandpaper or just, that paper where your pastel is, just to make sure that it's really flat. And then I'll just add some of this for texture. Back a little, and you can see what I'm doing over here. Ooh, sorry, if anybody's getting car sick from me doing that. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to pull it off a little bit better. There we go. Stay. It's very professional over here. Okay. Now I'm going to take the number 6 brush that I have designated for my darks. Get quite a bit of pigment. Just kidding, I didn't. Here we go.
Is that compressed charcoal 2B, 4B, or 6B?
I have no idea, honestly. Let me see.
That was the stick. I know we carry some of that, and I feel like it only comes in.
Yeah, I feel like it does too. It's just like kind of a one size fits all with those. Okay. I always feel like my assumptions are probably wrong, but I'm glad that.
No, I'm pretty sure they only offer it just as that. Like it doesn't come in different hardnesses.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think that it's just, I also think it's the same. I had to switch hands because that is not the right angle for a left-handed person. Okay. So now that my brush has plenty of pigment, I can now push it into the side of her head so it'll look more three-dimensional. If I finish a little before 4, I can show the vulture piece that I'm working on. It's behind me. I had to move it off the easel so I could do this. Angle's just a tiny bit skewed, and I apologize. It really just needs to be where my eyes are. Okay, what I'm gonna do is, now I don't usually, if I'm working on a gray toned paper, the tones are usually toned a little bit warm. So whenever you use the white pastel with the dark pastel, with the black pastel, they form a cooler tone because white is often just, it's just super light blue. It's got a cool value. So whenever you mix the two, it can often look very strange, but I'm gonna do it right here because I don't have time. I can't find my kneaded eraser. So if this looks like a little cooler just right here or a little muddy, it's because I didn't erase that. Let's see what I mean if it starts to look strange. I can see it. But it's like, to each their own. Like maybe that wouldn't bother some people. Just kind of slightly bothers me. I'm going to pull out the under highlight, but be careful about reflective light on the chin. It's not white. Like I see a lot of times, and I often want to make it a lot lighter than it actually is, but that's just going to make the values incorrect on the face and all that work that you've done.
What is the eraser you were using?
This is a Factus eraser. It's just like a mechanical eraser. So it's got a lot of lead, I guess, in it, a lot of eraser thing in it. The only problem I have with this is it creates a lot of those little eraser knobbies and it drives me crazy. But it is my favorite eraser, and I kind of stopped using kneaded erasers as much because I love that eraser so much, even though it creates a lot of fuzzy things. Pop some details in this ear really quick.
Question from Jessica. Do you find that teaching, starting from light, then establishing a dialogue between lights and darks, helps students in general compared to traditional wisdom?
Okay, not to toot the horns of the people who go for the lights first, but I will say that anyone who has taken my workshop, in the class, online, and has struggled in any way with like nailing a drawing, which is me, I can't just nail the drawing first thing. I like have to sneak up on it. They all say that it's helped a lot because you don't have to commit to anything. Like I feel like for myself, because I don't have that like illustrator background, I don't have like a strong, like just boom, we're drawing a face and it's, like it's amazing and it's stylized. I don't have that type of work, and I've never been able to like get my brain into that type of way. Going for the lights first makes it non-committal. Like you can erase any, like up until we started adding the darks, you can erase it basically down to just the paper tone. And so for me, just the peace of mind that I get from working in the lights first, and how, super rewarding it is to look at the whole time, I find that it's a lot more fun than just the traditional. But that's also, again, I'm just tooting our horns, the people that like to go for lights first. But it's like a thing that I think that people don't think that they can do also, because we all think like, well, like this is what they do it this school or this is what they teach over here, but you can do whatever you want because no one at like a gallery is like, oh, did you use reference? Did you go to art school? Did you go for the darks first? Like no one cares. So many like weird snooty things in art where it's just like no one cares. I just went on another tangent.
I think it's good for people to know that though, because I mean, can you look at a drawing and know if somebody went for the lights first versus the darks?
Literally no.
Yeah, so
I mean, I can't.
yeah.
Like I can't tell too, like, you know, you go to museums and, you know, see that people like, oh, you can tell like Sergeant glazed right here, whatever. I'm like, I truly can't tell that. I always just think that I'm like the odd person out because I didn't go to art school. But you can do whatever you want. Who cares? There's not a like art police. She has in the reference, she has this like crazy band right here of just like black. And I'm trying to skirt around that because I think if I drew it, it would look like a beard. And I just, you know, don't want to put that on her today. I do love drawing beards though. Sorry if my big head is like just sneaking into this frame.
No, it's not at all.
I'm like getting closer to the details. So like my head is like getting closer and then like, you know, I'm scooting up on the pencil and
I wish we saw more of that.
no one needs to see that.
Can you talk about the simplest approach to hair using wiggly lines that look great from a distance?
Well, I mean, I just kind of did it. Like you just make a mass of like a value, then you just push it a couple of, you know, push a couple of darkest darks and a couple of lightest lights, and then you have it. Like that's kind of exactly what I've been doing here. Just, you know, like don't get too detailed. Do not draw every hair. That's gonna look stupid. I mean, I'm sorry if you guys draw like every hair and it looks amazing. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to always look stupid. However, it doesn't, it's too hard. Like who has the time? You just like create a big mass, whether it's like, if it's dark hair, you just like put, you know, like a generic like mid-tone value down or a dark value, and then you erase out a few highlights like so. And then, oops, you can then add some darks for dimension. And then you're not struggling so long with hair.
As a portrait artist, are you more interested in creating work to be sold in galleries versus doing commissions?
I don't show in galleries, so just commissions for me. I don't, yeah, like I used to show in galleries and I would make work for that, but mostly like I didn't like curating my work for galleries because they always, every gallery has an aesthetic. And so you're going to try to fit into that aesthetic. And I don't really fit in galleries. So I'm just making portraits and all this stuff. And galleries are like, oh yeah, cool portrait of your friend. So mostly I'm doing, you know, commissions and then my own personal work and then selling to, you know, private collectors.
What are your opinions on celebrity / model portraits versus unique models you seek yourself?
I don't know. I have just whatever you want to draw, whatever you want to paint. If you like, you know, drawing models because they're, you know, they're basically curated for their aesthetic, like what they look like, then you draw them. Celebrities. I draw some celebrities and famous models. And this is my friend Cindy, who's a model. But she's also my friend, so I'm doing that as well. Or I, you know, sometimes I see a person, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at how amazing your nose is. I really want to draw you. Just like, you know, be open to anything. Inspiration comes from everywhere. So I don't necessarily have opinions on one versus the other. Just like if it makes you happy to draw your friends or draw someone you met on the subway or whatever, then that's what you should do. I put out a call even on Instagram a few years ago, and I'm still like working with some of the people that had responded to that because I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so inspiring just to see all the different types of faces, all the different types of people in the world. I don't ever try to like limit myself or anything. I'll start handling this draw now that there's 8 minutes left. So I'm just kind of like making up this area down here. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it's fine. At a certain point, I'll just close my reference too. And just try to figure it out, because you can go where, you move where you need to. Let me pop a couple of super highlights. Since we didn't take it too dark, I'll go the opposite realm. Also, like something I'm doing right now, what I'm practicing, where it's a constant evolution and we're always growing and changing. And right now, because some of my favorite artists are illustrators, because I just really admire that. Like I find illustrators endlessly fascinating, and they're my heroes of the art world. I'm trying to study these Leyendecker, Mucha, all these greats, Cornwell, like all the amazing illustrators, and their control on values. So I'm trying to keep in mind to have, if I'm going to go all the way with the light values, like three different variations of light values, then I'm only going to do 2 tops in the darks. And that's something that will, I think, start like evolving my work. So I'm just being like more conscious of that at this point. Like that's what I'm working on. So I want to do more highlights right now. It's the fastest hour of my life.
It's been really awesome to watch come to life. Like it went really quick for it to look this awesome.
Oh, thank God. Like, oh no, you're gonna blow it today, aren't you?
Not sure if you mentioned already, but what pencil are you using to highlight?
Oh, highlight. It's the General's white charcoal pencil. They come in a pack with a 2B, a 4B, and a 6B black eraser, or not black eraser, black charcoal, and then the white charcoal pencil, and then a kneaded eraser. And fun fact, my art is on it now. So that's the super cool thing.
We have to pick a winner that's going to win a pack of your pencils with your artwork on it, and a Fabriano sheet, and the hog bristle brushes.
I have to pick one?
Yes, you do.
How?
Whenever you're done with this, we'll go through people that are in the room with us, and you just randomly pick somebody.
Okay.
Do you use the number 2 general pencil for the entire piece, or different numbers throughout?
I use different numbers throughout, but because I knew I was on an hour time restriction, I was only going to use the 2. And also because I'm using that restraint within the values, I knew I was going to go for lights more, because this piece is blown out. But I usually use more than one. I'll go up to the 4 sometimes, or I'll just jump to the 6 if it's like a super dark portrait. But another pencil I really love, and it just kept snapping today, so I didn't use it, is this Carbon Sketch. Whenever I was first starting, I was, oh my gosh, I can't remember that. I was using just this pencil, which is very, very dark, and just this pencil. And I would just control the values that way. My finger. But yeah, like with that vulture piece, I used a lot of Carbon Sketch. I went through like 3 pencils and like one of these. Okay, I mean, I could keep doing this all day. So should I stop and just pick a winner?
No, you still have 4 minutes, so you can keep going if you want. It's up to you.
Okay, cool. I would love to. I mean, I'll never be done for sure, but
that's something that you always hear from an artist, is like they don't know when to finish. Like they just have to force themselves to basically be done with a drawing or a painting. Do you find yourself having to do that too?
Yes, all the time. Like I try so hard. Like whenever I teach, I'm like, okay, everybody, let's take a break. It's really gonna help. But like when I'm doing it personally, I don't take a break. I have to force myself. So I'm going to just call it done since that's what we're talking about right now.
Well, it looks awesome.
And then I'll flip my camera around and then we can
Alexandra wants to know if they may see the reference photo.
Yes, let me flip my, actually, hold on. I wonder if I can take this off. Okay, let's just wiggle for a second. I apologize. This is the reference. So see, there's like this black band here. Like I didn't want to add that. I made the hair different because then that's a tangent to here. So there are things like oh, here's the like little, Duraflame. These little piles of pastel. But yeah, there's like these weird like tangents that I didn't want to include. So I'm gonna put this here because it looks stupid. I will flip my camera around and we can pick a winner. Okay, so I just like scroll this. Okay, I'm gonna just like, hold on. Wait, I gotta go to, okay. Hold on. I'm just like pushing the arrows like back and forth.
Yes.
Martin. It just
Martin,
says
what? Martin, no last name?
Martin. It's just like share. Like he's
Right.
just Martin wins.
Well, Martin, please put your email address in the chat really quick. And then we had one more question from a Catherine. Do you always use black and white photos for reference or color ones as well?
If I'm going to be, if I'm going to be drawing in just charcoal, then yeah, I desaturate it because why would I want, like, it's just, one more thing. But if I'm drawing from life, obviously there's color in there. Sorry about this back here. I'll just put my head in front of it. But I usually, if I've taken the reference, I mean, even if I take it off online, I just, usually desaturate it.
Does anybody else have any questions before we end this? We are going to upload this on YouTube. You will get an email afterwards that has the links to the products that Kate uses, to her Patreon, to No Wave. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. If you, show them your latest drawing that you did.
You sound like you're my mom. Yeah, go ahead and show them. Okay, it's rather large. It was on the easel, but then I moved it. So that's what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks. I love it.
It doesn't look like we have any other questions. So if you're done, or if you have anything you want to add, Kate?
No, I don't. Yeah, follow the links. Like that's everything that I'm up to online. I'm posting a ton on Patreon, and then No Wave, they make amazing videos. So don't compare my videos to their videos. Other than that, that's it. I'm gonna go have a birthday drink now.
Yay! Well, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining, and happy birthday, Kate.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks so much. This has been really fun.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.